the psychology of winter people, and the refuge instinct. If you're reading this right now, wrapped in blankets, while the world outside demands your presence, you need to know something. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not failing at life. What you're experiencing has a name in psychological research. It's called Refuge Appeal, and it's as biological as hunger. Let me start by saying this clearly. The guilt you feel about wanting to stay home, about canceling plans, about choosing your couch over social obligations, that guilt is not your fault. It was installed in you by a culture that mistakes rest for weakness and solitude for failure. But your nervous system knows something your conscious mind has forgotten. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is nothing at all. The science of seeking shelter. There's a concept in environmental psychology called refuge appeal. The innate human attraction to small, enclosed spaces that offer protection and visibility outward. Think about it. Why do children build forts? Why do we prefer corner tables in restaurants? Why does sitting by a window with your back to the wall feel safer than sitting in the middle of a room? Your brain is hardwired to seek refuge. It's not a character flaw. It's a survival mechanism that kept our ancestors alive for hundreds of thousands of years. When you pull the curtains, light a candle, and settle into your favorite spot on the couch, you're not responding to an ancient neural architecture that says, "This space is mine. Here, I can lower my guard." And here's what's important to understand. During winter, this instinct intensifies. The shortened daylight triggers changes in your circadian rhythm. Your body produces more melatonin earlier in the day. Your metabolism shifts. Historically, winter was a time of conservation, not expansion. Your ancestors didn't feel guilty about doing less when the world was cold and dark. They understood what modern culture has forgotten. Winter is for turning inward. In traditional societies across the world, winter was a sacred time of rest. Indigenous cultures from Scandinavia to Siberia to Canada understood that the cold months were not for productivity. They were for storytelling, for craft making by the fire, for processing the experiences of the warmer months. They didn't fight winter. They surrendered to it. They understood that nature itself was modeling what humans needed to do: conserve, restore, prepare. The modern world has lost this wisdom. We've created artificial summers with heating, artificial days with electric lighting, artificial energy with caffeine and stimulants. And we wonder why we're exhausted. We're forcing our biology to override millions of years of evolutionary programming that says, when it's dark and cold, slow down. JOMO, the joy of missing out. You've heard of FOMO, fear of missing out. But there's a quieter revolution happening, and it's called JOMO, the joy of missing out. This isn't about being antisocial or misanthropic. It's about recognizing that sometimes the best possible use of your energy is to not spend it. Every time you say yes to something external, you're saying no to something internal. Every social obligation met is a moment of solitude sacrificed. and your nervous system keeps score. It tracks every smile you forced, every conversation you endured when you needed silence, every time you performed fine when you felt fragile. JOMO is the conscious choice to value your internal experience over external expectations. It's the recognition that the party you're not at, the event you're skipping, the group chat you've muted, these are not failures. They're boundaries. And boundaries are how you survive in a world that wants to consume all of you. When you choose to stay home on a Friday night, you're not missing out. You're opting in to rest, to stillness, to the radical act of being with yourself without apology. This is especially potent during winter months, when your body is literally telling you to conserve energy, to move less, to be still. Let me paint you a picture of what JOMO actually looks like in practice. It's 7 p.m. on a Saturday night. Your friends are at a crowded bar, shouting over music, drinking their third cocktail, performing energy they don't have. And you're in your pajamas at 6:30 p.m. There's soup on the stove. There's a book waiting. There's silence that doesn't need to be filled. And instead of guilt, you feel relief. Deep, cellular relief. That's JOMO. JOMO is understanding that the Instagram story of the party, the wedding, the girls' trip, those curated moments don't show the sensory overload, the forced conversations, the energy depletion that follows. JOMO is knowing that what looks like fun for others might be torture for you. And that's okay. More than okay, it's self-knowledge. It's honoring your truth, neurological absolution, why you're not lazy. Let's talk about what's really happening in your brain when you feel that crushing fatigue, that inability to just do it, that paralysis that others mistake for laziness. Your brain uses approximately 20% of your body's total energy, despite being only 2% of your body weight. Every decision you make, every interaction you navigate, every emotion you regulate, all of this requires glucose and oxygen. Your brain is an expensive organ to run. When you experience what's called decision fatigue, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive function, literally runs out of fuel. This isn't a metaphor. Studies show that after making multiple decisions, your brain's ability to make further decisions degrades measurably. You're not weak-willed. Your neurochemistry is depleted. And here's something they don't tell you. If you've experienced chronic stress, trauma, or have been in survival mode for extended periods, your baseline nervous system activation is already elevated. Your sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, is overactive. This means you're burning through cognitive resources faster than someone with a regulated nervous system. You're not starting from zero. You're starting from negative. And then you wonder why you can't keep up with people who have never had to live with a dysregulated nervous system constantly scanning for danger. Think about it this way. Imagine two people running a race. One person starts at the starting line, well rested, properly fueled. The other person has already run 10 miles before the race even begins, is running on 3 hours of sleep, and hasn't eaten all day. When that second person can't keep pace, we don't call them lazy. We recognize they're operating under completely different conditions. That's you. If you've lived with anxiety, if you've experienced trauma, if you grew up in an unpredictable or emotionally volatile environment, you're running a different race than people with regulated nervous systems. Your brain is doing extra work every single moment, monitoring for threat, preparing for worst-case scenarios, replaying interactions to catch missed dangers, staying hypervigilant even in safe spaces. This constant background processing is invisible to others. They don't see the mental load you're carrying. They just see you move slower, tire faster, need more recovery time. And they make judgments based on their own experience, not yours, the silent observer. Why your brain won't shut off AT night. If you're lying in bed right now, mind racing, unable to quiet the thoughts, listen carefully. This is not insomnia. This is processing. Your brain has 2 modes of operation. Task-positive network, when you're actively doing things, and default mode network, when your mind wanders. During the day, when you're busy, your brain suppresses the default mode network. But at night, when external stimulation decreases, that network activates. And what does it do? It processes. It reviews. It analyzes every microexpression you saw, every conversation you had, every social cue you might have missed. If you have a high-functioning anxiety brain, or what some researchers call high sensory processing sensitivity, you're taking in exponentially more data than the average person throughout the day. Your brain isn't keeping you awake to torture you. It's trying to process a backlog of social and emotional information. You're not overthinking. You're catching up on processing you didn't have time to do while you were performing normalcy all day. Here's what you need to know. This is not your fault. This is your high-resolution consciousness trying to make sense of a low-resolution world. You see things others miss. You feel things others don't notice. This is both your burden and your gift. Let me describe what this actually feels like. You're lying in bed, and suddenly you're replaying that moment from 3 days ago when your colleague said fine, but their facial expression said something else entirely. You're analyzing the slight pause before your friend responded to your text. You're reviewing that conversation at lunch where someone's tone shifted almost imperceptibly, and you caught it. And now your brain needs to understand why. Other people's brains don't do this. They experience the conversation, they move on. But your brain is different. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine that's always running, always analyzing, always trying to decode the subtextual layer of reality that most people don't even perceive exists. During the day, you can override this processing with tasks, with external focus, with the performance of being present. But at night, when the world quiets down, your brain finally gets the space it needs to do the deep work of analysis. And it will not be rushed. It will not be silenced. It has a backlog, and it's going to work through it, whether you like it or not. This is why telling someone with an overactive mind to just stop thinking is like telling someone who's hungry to just stop being hungry. The need is real. The process is necessary. Fighting it only creates more distress. The hypervigilance that kept you safe. Many people who identify as winter people, or introverts, or homebodies, share a common history. They learned early to read rooms, to monitor emotional temperature, to become experts in other people's moods as a survival strategy. Maybe you grew up in a home where you had to gauge which version of a parent you were getting that day. Maybe you learned that your safety depended on your ability to detect and respond to subtle shifts in emotional climate. Maybe you developed what psychologists call hypervigilance, a state of constant environmental scanning. That skill kept you safe. It helped you navigate unpredictable or unsafe situations. It's not a flaw. It's an adaptation. But here's the thing about hypervigilance. It doesn't have an off switch. Even now, in your own home, in your own bed, your nervous system might still be running that old program. Scan, assess, prepare for threat, react. This is why rest feels dangerous. Your nervous system was trained that letting your guard down leads to harm. So even when you desperately need to rest, some part of you remains on watch, vigilant, unable to fully surrender to safety. Let me tell you what hypervigilance actually looks like in daily life. Because it's often invisible even to the person experiencing it. You walk into a room and immediately note all the exits. You position yourself where you can see the door. You assess who's there, what their emotional state seems to be, whether there's any tension in the air. You do this automatically, without conscious thought. This is hypervigilance. Someone's tone changes slightly, and your heart rate increases. Your body goes on alert before your mind has even consciously registered what changed. You're already preparing for conflict, for abandonment, for rejection, before anything has actually happened. This is hypervigilance. You can't fully relax in public spaces. Part of you is always monitoring sounds, movements, changes in energy. You can't lose yourself in conversation because you're simultaneously tracking the emotional states of everyone around you. This is hypervigilance. And the exhausting part, most of this happens below your conscious awareness. You don't choose to do it. Your nervous system does it automatically, based on old programming that once kept you safe, but now just keeps you tired. The reframe, your flaws, are actually adaptations. Let me tell you something that might change how you see yourself. Your need for solitude. That's not antisocial behavior. That's chosen solitude, a deliberate practice of energy conservation and creative incubation. Studies show that many of history's greatest thinkers, artists, and innovators were what we'd now call introverts. They didn't produce despite their solitude. They produced because of it. You're overthinking. That's not anxiety disorder, though it can become one if unmanaged. That's strategic preparedness. You're running simulations, playing out scenarios, preparing for multiple outcomes. This is a sophisticated cognitive skill. Athletes call it visualization. You're doing it involuntarily because your brain learned that being prepared keeps you safe. Your dislike of unexpected guests. That's not rudeness. That's what researchers call territorial comfort and environmental control. You're not being difficult. You're protecting the carefully constructed refuge where your nervous system finally gets to regulate. Your tendency to cancel plans. That's not flakiness. That's energy accounting. Your nervous system is constantly calculating energy expenditure versus energy reserves. When you cancel, you're listening to an internal deficit that others might ignore until they burn out completely. Your preference for staying home during winter. That's not depression. That's seasonal energy conservation. A completely normal response to reduced daylight and lower temperatures. Your body is following circadian and seasonal rhythms that modern life tries to override with artificial light and climate control. Let's go deeper into each of these reframes, because understanding the function of your behavior changes everything. Solitude as creative incubation. Every major creative breakthrough in human history happened in solitude. Einstein's thought experiments, Newton's observations, every novelist who ever wrote a book, every artist who created in their studio. Solitude isn't the absence of connection, it's the presence of deep internal focus. Your need for alone time isn't antisocial. It's the requirement for the kind of deep work that can't happen in the constant stimulation of social interaction. Overthinking as strategic intelligence. Your brain's tendency to play out scenarios isn't neurotic, it's sophisticated risk assessment. You're running multiple simulations simultaneously. If I say this, they might respond this way, which could lead to this outcome, so I should prepare this response. This is executive function on overdrive. It's exhausting, yes, but it's also why you're rarely caught off guard, why you often see problems coming before others do, why your intuition is usually right. Territorial comfort as regulation space. Your home isn't just a building. It's a carefully calibrated environment where every element has been chosen to support your nervous system regulation. The lighting is right. The sounds are familiar. The arrangement of objects creates a sense of order and predictability. When someone enters uninvited, they're not just violating your space, they're disrupting a therapeutic environment. They're bringing unpredictability into your refuge. Of course, that feels threatening. Energy accounting as self-preservation. Your friends who never cancel. They're either not tracking their energy expenditure, or they have more energy to spend. Neither of these makes them better people. When you cancel plans because you're depleted, you're practicing honest resource management. You're saying, I don't have enough to give right now, and I won't perform adequacy when I'm running on empty. That's not flakiness. That's integrity, the cognitive blanket. Why you rewatch the same shows. Have you noticed that when you're stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, you don't want to watch new shows? You want to rewatch The Office, or Friends, or that comfort show you've seen 12 times. There's a term for this: predictability comfort. Your nervous system craves the known when the world feels chaotic. Rewatching familiar content is like wrapping yourself in a cognitive blanket. You know what's coming. There are no surprises, no plot twists that will spike your cortisol. Just the warm bath of recognition and familiarity. This is the same reason children want the same bedtime story read the same way every night. Predictability signals safety to the nervous system. And this right here is what you're seeking when you choose to stay home, when you create routines, when you resist novelty and spontaneity. You're not boring, you're regulating. Think about what happens in your body when you start a new show. Your brain has to learn new characters, track new plot lines, establish new patterns, decode new relationships. This requires active cognitive processing. Your brain is working. Now think about what happens when you rewatch a show you've seen before. You already know these characters. You know what's going to happen. Your brain can relax. It doesn't have to be on alert for new information. It can just be present with something familiar and safe. This is why, after a difficult day, after a week of stress, after any period of heightened nervous system activation, your brain doesn't want novelty. It wants the known. It wants to rest in familiarity. It wants the cognitive equivalent of coming home. People who don't understand this will judge you. You've already seen that show. Why don't you try something new? Aren't you bored? But boredom isn't what you're avoiding. Cognitive overload is what you're avoiding. Your brain has been processing new information, navigating social complexity, managing uncertainty all day, all week, all month. It doesn't need more stimulation. It needs the comfort of the known. This extends beyond television. This is why you order the same thing at restaurants, why you take the same route to work, why you prefer familiar places over new adventures. Your nervous system is not looking for excitement. It's looking for safety. And safety is found in the predictable, the myth of productivity culture. Here's something you need to understand about the guilt you feel. It was manufactured. Productivity culture, the idea that your value is determined by your output, is a recent invention. For most of human history, people's lives followed seasonal rhythms. There were times of intense activity, planting, harvest, and times of rest, winter. Nobody felt guilty about doing less in winter because winter was understood as a time of conservation. Industrial capitalism changed this. Suddenly, productivity needed to be constant, year-round, regardless of season, regardless of human rhythms. The factory doesn't rest. The assembly line doesn't stop. And slowly, we internalized this machine logic into our understanding of human worth. But But you are not a machine. You are a biological organism with circadian rhythms, seasonal responses, and a nervous system that requires rest to function. When you feel guilty about resting, that's not your intuition. That's internalized capitalism telling you that you only deserve to exist if you're producing. And that's a lie. Let's trace the history of this lie. Before the Industrial Revolution, most people worked according to natural and seasonal rhythms. Farmers worked intensely during planting and harvest, and rested during winter. Artisans worked at their own pace, creating quality goods without time pressure. Communities understood that human beings had limits, needs, cycles. Then came factories. Factory owners needed workers to match the pace of machines. They needed consistent output, regardless of human needs. So they created a culture that shamed rest, that equated busyness with virtue, that made exhaustion a badge of honor. And it worked. We internalized it so deeply that now, generations later, we feel guilty for taking a sick day. We apologize for needing rest. We wear our exhaustion as proof of our worth. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. Your worth is not determined by your productivity. You are not more valuable when you're busy and less valuable when you're still. Your existence is not contingent on your output. You are valuable because you exist. Full stop. No conditions. No productivity requirement. No output quota. You are inherently worthy of rest, of care, of gentle days where nothing is accomplished except existing. The winter brain. Biological changes you can't override with willpower. Let's get specific about what happens to your brain in winter. Your pineal gland increases melatonin production in response to decreased daylight. This makes you sleepier earlier and can create what feels like persistent fatigue. This is not laziness. This is neurobiology. Your serotonin levels can drop due to reduced sunlight exposure. Serotonin regulates mood, but it also regulates energy. Lower serotonin doesn't just make you sad, it makes you tired. This is why many people experience seasonal affective disorder, SAD, in winter months. Your body temperature drops slightly. This signals your metabolism to slow down. You're not imagining it. You literally have less energy in winter. Your body is conserving resources. Your vitamin D production decreases dramatically. Vitamin D isn't just about bone health. It's crucial for energy production, immune function, and mood regulation. When your vitamin D is low, everything feels harder. These are not personal failures. These are biological realities. No amount of positive thinking or motivational quotes will override your pineal gland's response to shortened daylight. Let me break down what's actually happening at a cellular level. Melatonin and the sleep-wake cycle. Your pineal gland releases melatonin in response to darkness. In summer, when there are 15 hours of daylight, melatonin production is suppressed for most of your waking hours. In winter, when there might be only 8 hours of daylight, melatonin starts being produced much earlier. This isn't a disorder. This is your body responding appropriately to environmental signals. Your body is trying to get you to sleep more in winter because, evolutionarily, that's what kept humans alive when food was scarce and temperatures were dangerous. Serotonin and the mood-energy connection. Serotonin is produced in response to sunlight exposure. Specifically, sunlight hitting your retinas triggers serotonin production. Less sunlight equals less serotonin. And serotonin doesn't just regulate mood, it regulates energy, appetite, sleep, and pain perception. When your serotonin is low, everything becomes harder. You need more effort to do the same tasks. You feel less motivated. You experience less pleasure. This isn't depression, though it can become depression if severe. This is neurochemistry responding to environmental changes, metabolism, and energy conservation. Your body temperature is regulated by your metabolism. When external temperatures drop, your body has to work harder to maintain core temperature. To compensate, it slightly decreases your metabolic rate to conserve energy. This is why you feel more sluggish in winter. Your body is literally conserving fuel. In traditional societies, this was adaptive. You needed to conserve energy when food was scarce. In modern society, we have abundant food, but our biology hasn't caught up. Your body is still trying to conserve energy for a famine that isn't coming. Vitamin D and cellular function. Vitamin D is produced when UVB rays from sunlight hit your skin. In winter, especially in northern latitudes, the angle of the sun is such that very little UVB reaches the Earth's surface. Even if you're outside, you're not producing vitamin D, and vitamin D is required for over 200 different cellular processes. When it's low, your immune system is compromised, your mood is affected, your energy production is impaired, and your bones weaken. This is why winter feels harder. It's not in your head, it's in your cells. The Refuge Appeal in practice. Why your home, BCOMES, sacred. There's a reason your home feels different to you than it does to others. What guests see as just a space, you experience as a nervous system sanctuary. Environmental psychology research shows that familiar environments require less cognitive processing. Your brain has mapped every corner, every sound, every smell. This frees up mental resources that would otherwise go to environmental monitoring. When you're home, you're not just in a building. You're in a space where your nervous system has learned it can begin to downregulate. The lock on the door isn't just keeping others out. It's giving your brain permission to shift from external vigilance to internal rest. This is why unexpected visitors feel so violating. It's not that you don't like people. It's that someone has entered your regulation space without warning. And now your nervous system has to shift back into monitoring mode. This is why cleaning and organizing can feel so urgent when you're stressed. You're not being obsessive. You're trying to create environmental predictability because your internal world feels chaotic. This is why certain spots in your home, that corner of the couch, that chair by the window, feel sacred. Those are the places where your nervous system has most successfully achieved regulation. They're literally healing spaces for your neurobiology. Let's talk about what makes a space a refuge. Enclosure. Refuge spaces have defined boundaries. This is why you prefer corner seats, why you like having your back to a wall, why small spaces feel safer than large open areas. Enclosure signals to your primitive brain. The threat can only come from one direction. I can monitor this. I am safe. Visibility outward. True refuges offer both enclosure and the ability to see potential threats approaching. This is why window seats are so appealing. This is why you prefer spaces where you can see the door. You're not paranoid. You're responding to an evolutionary advantage that kept your ancestors alive. Familiarity. Your brain creates detailed maps of familiar environments. In your home, your brain knows what sounds are normal, the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of that floorboard, what smells are expected, what visual patterns are safe. This familiarity means your brain doesn't have to stay on high alert. It can relax its vigilance because it knows, I know this place. I've mapped this place. There are no surprises here. Control. In your home, you control the temperature, the lighting, the sounds, who enters when they enter. This control is profoundly regulating for a nervous system that has experienced unpredictability. Control equals safety. Safety equals the possibility of rest. When someone shows up at your door unannounced, they're violating all of these elements. They're bringing unpredictability into your controlled space. They're introducing a social performance requirement into your regulation sanctuary. Of course, your nervous system perceives this as a threat, the permission you've been waiting for. I want to give you something right now. Permission. Permission to be exactly where you are. Permission to feel what you feel without trying to fix it, change it, or optimize it. Permission to say no, to cancel, to disappoint people, to choose yourself. Permission to rest without earning it. You don't have to be productive enough to deserve rest. Rest is not a reward for productivity. Rest is a biological necessity, like breathing. Permission to be a winter person, even in summer. To be an introvert in an extroverted world. To need more time alone than others. To process more slowly. To feel more deeply. Permission to stop trying to be the person you think you should be, and just be the person you actually are. Your nervous system has been on high alert, possibly for years, possibly for decades. It's been waiting for permission to finally, fully rest. I'm giving you that permission now, but let me be more specific about what this permission actually means in practice. Permission to rest means you can spend an entire Saturday in pajamas, and it doesn't make you lazy. It makes you someone who needed rest and took it. Permission to say no means You don't owe anyone an explanation. No is a complete sentence. I can't make it doesn't require justification. Permission to cancel means you can change your mind. You can commit when you have energy and cancel when you don't. This doesn't make you unreliable. It makes you honest about your capacity. Permission to choose yourself means when the choice is between what others want from you and what you need for yourself, you are allowed to choose yourself. Every single time. Permission to be different means you don't have to want what others want. You don't have to enjoy what others enjoy. You don't have to force yourself into a mold that doesn't fit. This permission might feel uncomfortable. You might feel selfish. You might feel guilty. That's normal. You've been taught that other people's needs and expectations should come before your own. You've been taught that rest is earned, not needed. You've been taught that different is wrong. But consider this. What if the discomfort of honoring your needs is actually less damaging than the slow depletion of constantly overriding them? What if guilt is just the signal of an old belief being challenged, not evidence that you're doing something wrong? The truth about your sensitivity, if you're reading this and recognizing yourself in these words, there's a good chance you're what researcher Elaine Aron calls a highly sensitive person, HSP. This is not a disorder. It's a trait that appears in about 15-20% of the population. Highly sensitive people have more active mirror neurons, deeper processing of information, stronger emotional responses, and greater awareness of subtle stimuli. They notice things others miss. They feel things others might overlook. This means you get overstimulated more easily, not because you're weak, but because you're processing more data. You need more downtime to process experiences, not because you're slow, but because you're thorough. You're more affected by other people's emotions, not because you're codependent, but because your mirror neurons are more active. You're more impacted by your environment, not because you're high maintenance, but because you're genuinely perceiving more environmental information. This sensitivity is not a flaw to fix. It's a feature of your neurology. And while it comes with challenges, it also comes with gifts, deep empathy, rich inner life, capacity for profound connection, appreciation for beauty and nuance, strong intuition. The world needs sensitive people. We just need to stop asking sensitive people to function like insensitive ones. Let me paint a fuller picture of what high sensitivity actually looks like. Sensory sensitivity. You notice the hum of fluorescent lights that others don't hear. You can smell things others can't detect. Certain fabrics feel unbearable against your skin. Loud environments aren't just unpleasant, they're actually painful. This isn't pickiness. Your nervous system is genuinely receiving and processing more sensory information than the average person. Emotional sensitivity. You walk into a room and immediately sense the tension no one is acknowledging. You can feel when someone is upset even if they're smiling. You absorb other people's emotions like a sponge absorbing water. This makes you incredibly empathetic, but it also means you carry emotional burdens that aren't even yours. Depth of processing. You can't just make quick decisions. You need to consider all angles. You can't just skim the surface of an idea. You need to understand it deeply. You can't just let things go. You need to process them fully. This makes you thorough, thoughtful, and wise. It also makes you slow by societal standards that value speed over depth. Overstimulation threshold. You have a lower threshold for overstimulation than others. What feels like an energizing party to someone else feels like sensory assault to you. What seems like a normal workday to others leaves you completely depleted. You're not weak. You're processing exponentially more information, and processing requires energy. High sensitivity is genetic. It's found across species. About 20% of most animal populations show this trait. It's evolutionary adaptive. Sensitive individuals notice dangers others miss, detect subtle environmental changes, and provide careful, thorough analysis that balances out the quick, impulsive decision makers in a group. You're not broken. You're a different kind of normal. And the world needs your particular way of perceiving and processing reality. The myth of the social obligation. Let's address something directly. You don't owe anyone your presence. Somewhere along the way, you learned that saying no makes you bad. That declining invitations makes you selfish. That choosing solitude over socializing makes you defective. But here's the truth. Every yes to someone else can be a no to yourself. And you matter too. That dinner party you don't want to attend. The social obligation making your stomach tight. The event you're dreading for days before it happens. Those feelings are information. Your nervous system is telling you something. Maybe it's saying, I don't have the energy for this. Maybe it's saying, this environment isn't safe for me. Maybe it's saying, I need something different right now. Whatever it's saying, it deserves to be heard. Not overridden, not medicated, not positive thought away. Heard. You are allowed to protect your energy. You are allowed to be selective about where you spend your precious, finite resources. You are allowed to say, not today, not now, not this. Let's dismantle the myth of social obligation piece by piece. The myth, good friends always show up. The truth, good friends respect each other's capacity. Real friendship includes the freedom to say, I can't, without losing the relationship. The myth, if you really cared, you'd make the effort. The truth, caring about someone doesn't mean sacrificing your well-being. You can love someone and still honor your own limits. The myth, people will think you're antisocial. The truth, what other people think is based on their own capacity and needs, not yours. Someone who needs constant socializing will judge your need for solitude. That doesn't make their judgment accurate. The myth, you'll regret missing out. The truth, you know what you actually regret. Forcing yourself to attend events that deplete you, then being too exhausted to enjoy the things you actually value. The myth, saying no is selfish. The truth, saying yes when you mean no is dishonest. Saying yes when you're depleted means you show up as a diminished version of yourself. How is that better for anyone? Here's what social obligation culture doesn't tell you. When you show up depleted, when you perform presence while internally screaming, when you force yourself to be social, when you need solitude, you're not giving people the gift of your presence. You're giving them the performance of your presence. And that performance costs you everything while giving them very little of real value. The people who truly love you don't want your performance. They want your authentic presence. And sometimes authentic presence means admitting, I don't have it in me today. The sanctuary of predictable routine. There's something deeply soothing about routine that chaotic minds crave. The same morning ritual, the same route to work, the same lunch, the same evening wind down. What looks like boring repetition to others is actually nervous system regulation for you. Routine reduces decision fatigue. When you don't have to decide what to eat, what to wear, what to do, you conserve cognitive energy for the things that actually require it. Routine creates predictability, and predictability signals safety. When your brain can predict what comes next, it doesn't have to maintain high alert vigilance. Routine is especially important if you experienced unpredictability in childhood. If you never knew which version of reality you'd wake up to, creating a predictable adult life isn't boring, it's healing. This is why disruptions to routine can feel so destabilizing. It's not that you can't handle change. It's that your nervous system had finally calibrated to a predictable pattern, and now it has to recalibrate, which requires energy you might not have. Let's explore what routine actually does for your nervous system. Routine eliminates decision points. Every decision requires cognitive energy. What to eat, what to wear, what route to take, what task to do first. These tiny decisions add up. When you have a routine, you eliminate hundreds of micro decisions throughout the day. This conservation of cognitive energy means you have more capacity for the things that actually matter. Routine creates temporal predictability. Your nervous system calms when it knows what's coming. When you wake up at the same time, eat at the same times, follow the same evening routine, your body begins to prepare for what's next. Your digestive system knows when to expect food. Your circadian rhythm aligns with your sleep schedule. Your nervous system can relax because it knows the pattern. Routine becomes ritual. When you do the same thing the same way repeatedly, it stops being just a task and becomes a ritual. Your morning coffee isn't just caffeine. It's a signal to your nervous system that the day is beginning in a safe, predictable way. Your evening tea isn't just a beverage. It's a signal that it's time to wind down. These rituals anchor you. Routine is control. In a chaotic world where so much is unpredictable, routine is the area where you have complete control. You choose what happens, when it happens, how it happens. This control is deeply regulating for anyone who experienced unpredictability or chaos, especially in childhood. People who haven't experienced chaos don't understand why routine matters so much. They think you're rigid, boring, inflexible. They don't understand that routine is the foundation of safety for you. It's not limitation, it's liberation. When the framework of your day is predictable, you have the cognitive and emotional capacity to handle the unpredictable elements that inevitably arise. The deep processing that never stops. Your brain doesn't process information the way other brains do. You're what psychologists call a deep processor. While others skim the surface, you dive. While others make quick decisions, you consider multiple angles. While others move on, you're still integrating. This means you can't make snap decisions easily. Not because you're indecisive, but because you're considering more variables. You replay conversations for days. Not because you're obsessive, but because you're processing layers of meaning others didn't notice. You need time alone after social interactions. Not because you didn't enjoy them, but because you need to process the enormous amount of information you absorbed. You get exhausted by small talk. Not because you're snobby, but because your brain is working hard to find depth in shallow conversation. And it's energy intensive to constantly adjust your processing depth to match surface level interaction. This deep processing is why you're often right about people, why your intuition is strong, why you pick up on things others miss. Your brain is constantly running sophisticated analysis in the background, but it's also why you get so tired. Deep processing is expensive, cognitively speaking. Here's what deep processing looks like in real life. In conversations, someone makes an offhand comment. Most people hear it, respond, move on. You hear it, and your brain immediately starts analyzing. What did they really mean? What was the subtext? What does this reveal about their emotional state? What does this mean for the relationship? You're processing layers that others don't even perceive exist. In decision making, someone asks where you want to eat dinner. Most people quickly pick a place. You immediately start running scenarios. What do I actually feel like eating? What will be too loud or overstimulating? What fits my budget? What's the quality like? Who might we run into? What if I choose wrong and everyone's disappointed? You're not being difficult. You're processing all the variables others don't consider. After social events, most people go to a party, come home, go to sleep. You go to a party, come home, and spend the next 2 hours replaying every interaction. What did that person mean when they said that thing? Did I talk too much? Did I seem interested enough? That moment when there was awkward silence, was that my fault? You're not being neurotic. You're processing all the social data you collected. With media and information, most people can watch the news, read an article, scroll social media without much impact. You absorb it all. You feel it all. That story about suffering haunts you. That injustice makes you angry for days. That beautiful piece of art moves you to tears. You're not being overly emotional. You're processing deeply. Deep processing is a gift and a burden. The gift is depth, wisdom, insight, empathy, rich inner life. The burden is exhaustion, overstimulation, analysis paralysis, and the loneliness of existing at a different processing depth than most of the people around you. The winter solitude that heals. There's something about winter that gives you permission to turn inward in a way that other seasons don't. In summer, when everyone's outside, visible, active, your isolation feels more pronounced. But in winter, when darkness comes early and cold keeps people inside, your natural inclination toward solitude suddenly aligns with the season. Winter is nature's permission slip for rest. Trees stop producing. Animals hibernate. The earth itself goes dormant. And you finally get to stop apologizing for needing what the entire natural world is doing. This is why winter can actually feel like relief for introverts and highly sensitive people. The external world finally matches your internal need for stillness. Use this, don't fight it. Winter is your season too. Process the accumulated experiences of the year. Your brain has been storing experiences, and winter gives you time to integrate them. Rest the parts of yourself that perform all year. The social self, the productive self, the always-on self. Let them rest. Reconnect with your inner world. The thoughts, feelings, dreams, and desires that get drowned out by external demands. Restore your nervous system. True rest, the kind that actually restores, takes time. Winter gives you that time if you'll take it. Winter is when nature withdraws energy from leaves and flowers and redirects it to roots. The visible growth stops. The invisible strengthening happens below the surface. You are doing the same thing. When you withdraw in winter, when you turn inward, when you reduce your external activity, you're not doing nothing. You're redirecting energy to your roots. You're strengthening your foundation. You're integrating your experiences. You're restoring your reserves. This is not stagnation. This is essential work that can only happen when the external demands decrease. In traditional wisdom from cold climates, winter was understood as essential. The Scandinavian concept of hygge recognizes winter as a time for internal warmth, for candles and blankets and small comforts. The Germanic tradition of winteru acknowledges winter rest as necessary. Even in nature, winter is not death, it's dormancy, which is required for spring growth. Your body knows this. Your nervous system knows this. Only your mind, trained by a culture that values constant productivity, resists this ancient wisdom. The guilt that serves no one. Let's talk about the guilt. The gnawing feeling that you should be doing more, being more, trying harder. That guilt is not your friend. It's not motivating you toward better behavior. It's just creating a constant background stress that makes everything harder. Guilt functions best as a short-term signal. I did something that violated my values. I need to make amends. But chronic guilt about resting, about saying no, about being who you are, that's not functional guilt. That's internalized oppression. You're not guilty of anything. You're just different from what mainstream culture has decided is normal. And different is not wrong. Every time you feel guilt about resting, ask yourself, who does this guilt serve? Not you. You need rest. Not your loved ones. They need you regulated, not depleted. Not your work. You're better at your job when you're rested. The guilt serves a system that benefits from your depletion. And you don't owe that system anything. Let's trace where this guilt actually comes from. Childhood messaging. Maybe you were told you were lazy when you needed rest. Maybe you were praised for pushing through when you should have stopped. Maybe you learned that your needs were less important than others' convenience. That guilt isn't yours. It was installed. Cultural programming. You live in a culture that glorifies busy, that treats rest as luxury rather than necessity, that measures worth by output. Every time you rest and feel guilty, that's culture speaking, not truth. Comparison. You see others seemingly doing more with ease, and you judge yourself for needing more rest. But you don't know what they're sacrificing, what they're avoiding feeling, what crash is coming for them later. Fear of judgment. You know that others might judge you for saying no, for canceling, for choosing yourself. That anticipated judgment creates guilt. But their judgment is based on their capacity and needs, not yours. Here's the truth. Guilt that motivates change is useful. I snapped at someone I love. I feel guilty. I need to apologize. That's functional guilt. But guilt about needing what you need, being who you are, having the capacity you have, that's toxic guilt. It serves no one. It changes nothing. It just makes you suffer. The parasympathetic shift, teaching your body safety. Your nervous system has two main modes: sympathetic, fight, flight, freeze, and parasympathetic, rest, digest, heal. If you've been in survival mode for a long time, your nervous system might have forgotten how to shift into parasympathetic mode. Rest might actually feel dangerous because your body learned that letting your guard down leads to harm. This is why you might feel anxious when you try to relax. Why meditation makes you more agitated. Why vacation days feel stressful. Your nervous system doesn't trust safety. Healing this requires gentle, consistent practice. You're not trying to force relaxation. You're trying to teach your nervous system that safety is possible. This might look like tiny moments of presence, 5 conscious breaths, feeling your feet on the ground, noticing one thing you can see, hear, smell, predictable comfort, the same tea, the same blanket, the same music, teaching your brain, when these things happen, we're safe. Honoring your no. Every time you honor a boundary, you tell your nervous system, I'm protecting you. You can trust me. Gradual exposure to stillness. You might not be able to meditate for 20 minutes, but can you sit still for 2? Can you do nothing for 5 minutes? Start there. Let's understand what's actually happening when your nervous system won't let you rest. The survival state. When your sympathetic nervous system is activated, your body is in survival mode. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your muscles tense. Your digestion slows. Your immune function decreases. All your resources are redirected toward dealing with threat. This state is supposed to be temporary, activated during actual danger, then deactivated once the danger passes. But if you experienced chronic stress, trauma, or unpredictability, your nervous system might have gotten stuck in this activated state. It's like a car alarm that won't turn off. The safety state. Your parasympathetic nervous system creates the state where healing happens. Your heart rate slows. Your breathing deepens. Your muscles relax. Your digestion works. Your immune system functions. This is the state where your body can actually repair and restore itself. But here's the problem. If your nervous system learned that relaxing leads to danger, it will resist entering this state. It will perceive rest as a threat. This is why trying to force yourself to relax can actually increase anxiety. The gradual shift. You can't force your nervous system to trust safety. You have to teach it gradually, with evidence. Every time you honor a boundary and nothing bad happens, that's evidence. Every time you rest and wake up okay, that's evidence. Every time you say no and the relationship survives, that's evidence. Over time, with consistent evidence, your nervous system begins to learn. Maybe safety is possible. Maybe rest doesn't lead to danger. Maybe I can let my guard down. This process is slow. It requires patience. It requires consistency. It requires being incredibly gentle with yourself when your nervous system resists rest. You're not forcing it. You're inviting it. You're creating conditions where safety becomes possible, and then waiting for your nervous system to trust those conditions. The comparison trap that steals your peace. Social media shows you everyone's highlight reel, while you're living your behind-the-scenes reality. You see someone's vacation photos and forget they didn't show the anxiety attack at the airport. You see someone's productivity and forget they didn't mention the stimulants making it possible. You see someone's social calendar and forget they didn't share the depression that follows overstimulation. You're comparing your inside to everyone else's outside, and you're losing. Here's what you don't see. The person who looks so energetic is on their 3rd coffee and heading for a crash. The person who seems so social goes home and cries from exhaustion. The person who appears so productive is ignoring their body's signals until they get sick. Your way of being slower, quieter, more internal isn't wrong. It's just different. And different doesn't need to justify itself. The comparison trap is particularly insidious because it's designed to be invisible. Let me show you what's actually happening. The curation effect. Every image you see on social media was chosen from dozens or hundreds. Every caption was crafted. Every post was curated to present a specific image. You're seeing the 1% they chose to share, and you're comparing it to your 100%, including all the messy, difficult, unglamorous parts they're also experiencing, but not sharing. The context collapse. You see someone's achievement without seeing the privilege, support, resources, or circumstances that made it possible. You see someone's energy without knowing about the medication, therapy, or support system sustaining it. You see someone's social life without knowing about the loneliness they feel in crowds. The capacity difference. Some people genuinely have more energy, more capacity, different nervous systems. This doesn't make them better. It makes them different. Comparing your capacity to theirs is like comparing your height to theirs and feeling guilty that you're not taller. It's not a moral failing. It's just a different starting point. The sacrifice you can't see. That person who seems to do it all might be sacrificing sleep, relationships, health, or internal peace. They might be headed for burnout. They might be avoiding dealing with difficult emotions by staying perpetually busy. You don't want their life. You just want their highlight reel. Here's the practice. Every time you catch yourself comparing, ask, am I comparing my whole reality to someone else's curated presentation? And then, what am I sacrificing by trying to match someone else's capacity? The practice of presence without pressure. Cats have something to teach us about being. A cat doesn't apologize for existing, doesn't try to be more productive, doesn't feel guilty about napping in the sun for the 4th time today. A cat just is, present, embodied, unapologetic. This is what you're trying to return to. Presence without pressure. Being without becoming. Existing without justifying your existence through productivity. You don't have to earn your worth through output. You're not more valuable when you're busy, and less valuable when you're still. Your worth is inherent. It exists because you exist. Full stop. Watch a cat for a moment. Notice how it moves through the world. It doesn't rush. It doesn't multitask. It doesn't perform. When it's hungry, it eats. When it's tired, it sleeps. When it wants affection, it seeks it. When it wants solitude, it finds a quiet spot. A cat is fully present to its current experience. It's not thinking about what it should be doing. It's not feeling guilty about what it's not doing. It's not worried about being productive enough, or social enough, or achieving enough. A cat exists without apology. And we've forgotten how to do this. We've learned to constantly justify our existence through achievement, through productivity, through being useful to others. We've learned that our worth is contingent, that we have to earn the right to take up space, that we're only valuable if we're contributing. But what if that's wrong? What if your worth isn't contingent? What if you're valuable simply because you exist, just like that cat? This is the practice. Can you just be? Can you exist without justifying your existence? Can you rest without earning it? Can you be present without performing? This might be one of the hardest things you ever do. Unlearning the idea that your worth is contingent on your output. Unlearning the guilt that comes with rest. Unlearning the belief that you have to justify your existence. But it's also one of the most liberating. Because once you understand that your worth is inherent, you're free. Free to rest when you're tired. Free to say no when you're depleted. Free to exist without constantly proving that you deserve to. The evening routine, signaling safety to your brain. As night approaches, your brain needs signals that the day is ending and rest is permitted. This might include dimming lights. Bright light signals daytime to your brain. Reduce blue light, increase warm light. Temperature drop. Your body temperature needs to drop slightly for sleep. Cool your environment. Consistent timing. Going to bed at the same time teaches your brain when to release melatonin. Sensory predictability. The same pajamas, the same pillow, the same sounds. Your brain learns. These things mean safety and sleep. Release of the day. Not rumination, but conscious release. Today happened. It's over now. I'm safe now. Your evening routine is not just a series of tasks. It's a communication system between you and your nervous system. You're teaching your body. The day is ending. It's safe to rest now. Let's build an effective evening routine. Light transition, 2-3 hours before bed. Start dimming lights in your space. Turn off overhead lights. Use lamps, candles, warm-toned bulbs. This signals to your pineal gland that darkness is coming, which triggers melatonin production. Screen boundaries, 1-2 hours before bed. Blue light from screens suppresses melatonin. If you must use screens, use blue light filters. Better yet, choose activities that don't involve screens. Reading physical books, journaling, gentle stretching. Temperature management. Your core body temperature needs to drop for sleep. Take a warm bath or shower 60-90 minutes before bed. As your body cools after, it signals sleep time. Sensory consistency. Use the same signals every night. Maybe it's a specific tea. Maybe it's certain pajamas. Maybe it's a particular scent, lavender, chamomile. These become Pavlovian signals to your nervous system. These things mean sleep is coming. Physical release. Gentle movement helps release the physical tension of the day. This doesn't mean exercise, which can be activating. This means gentle stretching, slow walking, restorative yoga poses. Mental release. Your mind needs to release the day too. This could be journaling, just dumping thoughts onto paper without analysis. A gratitude practice, noticing 3 things from the day, or a simple acknowledgement. Today happened. It's done now. I can rest. The power of consistency. The most important element of an evening routine is consistency. Your nervous system learns through repetition. The same routine at the same time every night teaches your body. This pattern means we're safe. This pattern means we can rest. The permission to just be. Right now, in this moment, you don't have to be anywhere else. You don't have to be anyone else. You don't have to do anything else. You can just be here, breathing, existing, taking up space without apology. The world will keep turning whether you're productive or not. The sun will rise whether you achieved anything today or not. Your worth remains constant whether you did everything on your list or nothing at all. You are enough, not because of what you did today, not because of what you'll do tomorrow, just because you are. This is not a motivational statement. This is not positive thinking. This is fact. Your existence is not contingent on your performance. Your worth is not determined by your output. Your value is not measured by your productivity. You exist. That is enough. Every breath you take is valuable. Every moment you exist has inherent worth. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to justify it. You are here. You are alive. You are enough. Let that settle in, not as an idea, as a truth, as a reality that exists whether you believe it or not. You are enough. The closing. Your nervous system can rest now. If you're still here, still reading, still processing, your brain is looking for permission to finally rest. So here it is. You can rest now. The analyzing can stop. The planning can pause. The worrying can wait. You did enough today. You were enough today. And tomorrow will take care of itself. Your hypervigilance kept you safe. But right now, in this moment, you're safe. You can let the guard down. You can let the shoulders drop. You can let the jaw unclench. There's nothing to fix right now. Nothing to solve. Nothing to become. Just this breath, and the next one, and the one after that. You're not falling behind by resting. You're not failing by being still. You're not weak for needing this. You're human. And humans need rest. Especially humans who feel deeply, process thoroughly, and carry the weight of their own sensitivity through a world that wasn't built for them. This is your permission. Rest. Without guilt, without apology, without condition. Your nervous system can stand down now. The threat has passed. You're home. You're safe. You can finally, fully, completely rest. And in this rest, in this stillness, in this quiet, you're not doing nothing. You're doing the most important thing. You're healing. Sweet dreams, winter person. Your sensitivity is not a curse. Your introversion is not a flaw. Your need for solitude is not a weakness. You're exactly who you're supposed to be. And that is enough. Rest now.